Other questions?
Okay, thank you. So I heard someone say something about an investment bank that kind of sets a $35 million minimum. Is there a range of what's reasonable versus an egregious fee percentage for investment banks?
That was above my pay grade when I was on Wall Street.
It's all going to vary. I mean, you know, especially as you get lower down the chain, like higher risk transactions are gonna, like the more complicated the transaction, the more you're gonna have to fork over. But again, going back to what we just talked about, like that is a first world problem if you get there.
But I would interview them, right? So I would probably go with 3 of them. They'll take you out for lunch or dinner even, because they want your business, right? So like go with 3 of them and then see like what are your fees, what do you specialize in, right? So if you're in like farm equipment and they specialize in tech, then it's not a good fit, you know? So you wanna make sure that they have a specialty that they can reach out to their Rolodex and be like, I got a whole bunch of farmers and farm equipment people that would love to buy your company right now. And you're like, man, that's the one. What's your fees? Then you compare it against your other guys. But yeah, I wouldn't stop at one. I would just go, try to get as many people.
And again, with the fees from IPOs, right? With direct listing and some of these new trends coming about, right? When you see Spotify, for instance, go through Morgan Stanley and they're able to push and do a direct listing, like the revenue generated from that, for Morgan Stanley, much, much lower, right, than a traditional IPO. And so staying, I think, abreast of these kind of trends and the barriers that are actually coming down, and shifting some of the power, again, back into the business owner, the founder, is something to keep an eye out for, I would say.
And I don't know if you want to answer this, but is fee creep typical?
Generally not. I mean, when you sign an engagement letter, I mean, it'll be there. So to his point, shop around, get it, and get a range, and say that on average, this is what your peers are tracking. I'm not going to move on this needle and go there. More importantly, I think, is a point that Ian brought up. The person representing you, you may even willing to pay a top quartile fee if you're selling an AI company and that person has done 50 AI deals and they can connect you to strategics or financial sponsors that are going to pay a premium, right? So I would focus more on their capabilities as opposed to aggregating over the specific 300 basis points difference, right?
Oh, thank you all for being here today. My name is Mike. I'm a student at UM. Kind of going to Brandon's point earlier about building the best possible product that you can. I want to balance that out with this question. What are some things that you all believe founders should do early to set the conditions for a smooth diligence process if one of their goals is an exit?
Be honest. I get so annoyed when I initially talk to a CEO and they're like, yeah, our sales last year were, 26 million. Businesses before we have the NDA or anything, and I'm like, great. Then we go through the process and look at their finances and it's 5 million, done. That happened to me once, I just shut it down. Like, especially because at some point we're gonna actually see your numbers, right? So it doesn't make any sense. But this happens. People think they can just sweet talk you and I'm gonna be so in love that I'm gonna forget about the details. But as Antonio said, I have to bring this to a business sponsor, so I don't wanna look stupid. So you need to make sure that everything I tell them is correct.
I would say, one, get your books in order. They're going to inspect your tech. They're going to look through like your open source libraries, things like that. It won't typically like kill the deal, but they may want you to address like some restrictive licenses on some open source stuff that your whole tech depends upon, right? So there's like tech due diligence, there's financial due diligence, and I think just from your perspective, if you're going to go to market and say I'm for sale, I would start to solidify some partnerships, solidify some clientele, some new clients, some new areas of business that that makes you look even more attractive.
Yeah, I would say, go ahead, no. New question.
Okay, we have time for one more question. I think this gentleman's been waiting, so.
Hi, this question is for Ian. Thank you. So is a trend where a lot of people are in the position you're in where they started a tech company and actually sold off and went into VC work. Even Monique earlier did the same exact thing. Could you talk about your exit strategy, leaving out of tech and then going right back into reinvesting in those industries as well?
I think Brian's the same way. But yeah, I know it's so weird. I see it as well. Like, and I don't think I ever intended on being in VC. I consider myself an entrepreneur first, an entrepreneur always. But so I think my story is unique. I don't know that I can speak to the entire trend. My story is unique in that I run a corporate venture fund, which means I don't have to go and raise money from people to invest on their behalf. I just invest on behalf of the balance sheet of the company. So it's a little bit different, but I will say that is absolutely a trend. If you've raised money, you understand the process, you feel like you're smart enough to do it. I don't know if you actually are, but at least you feel like you understand the process enough and have kind of been in the entrepreneur scene enough to be able to understand people and what makes a good company and what doesn't. And typically that's what you are using to then go raise funds from other people. It's typically not the case that you're investing only your money, right? So venture capital funds are taking other people's money, retirement funds, pension funds, corporates, and taking their money and investing on their behalf. But you're taking your skill set, like Brian's like an amazing computer vision AI guy, right? So you're taking your skill sets and say, I built an amazing company in this space. I know the players in this space. That's what makes me an expert, and that's why you should give me money to invest on your behalf. So that's how typically that flow goes. The successful exit from a specific vertical where you're an expert, and then you can go and raise money to be able to then invest on other people's behalf.
All right, folks, thank you so much. Could we have a round of applause for our panelists?